Hello there, Friday Night Movie family. Before we get to today's program, I wanted to say a couple of words about this very special episode. As you know, we are huge fans of the program Dallas and Robo, which airs on YouTube's premium channel, YouTube Red. And we were lucky enough to be joined by the show's creator, animator, writer, director, Mike Roberts. And if you'd like to check out that show before you listen to today's episode, since we reference it quite a bit, I highly recommend going to YouTube and searching Dallas, like the city, and then Robo, and watching one or two of the episodes. I'm sure you'll be hooked the way we are. And if you'd like to follow along with Mike's amazing art, which we reference multiple times during the program, go to his Instagram page, instagram.com/TheMikeRoberts. Spelt like how you would think it would be spelt, and check out, he does a lot of animation time lapses of his actual drawing and some 3D modeling, and you get a real window into the incredible talent that is Mike. And again, we were really lucky to have him join us today for what was a really fun conversation that spanned everything from his work to our favorite movies pre-1980. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Thanks as always for listening.
You're using the video feature.
Wait, what am I not supposed to do? I can turn it off. Hold on.
No, I can say hi by video. Hi.
Hey.
Well, we'll go back. We'll go to audio at some point, but I actually can't see Mike.
We've never done this. I'm taking a picture of us.
Hold on.
Yep. I'm like an old Jewish mother. I have to take pictures of everything.
Here we are, and welcome to another episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast, where I get together with my sisters and we talk about movies and television, and we invite you, the listener, to be a part of our family. However, this week the family is at 2/3 strength because our younger sister is traveling in Copenhagen, but we have a special guest. We have Mr. Michael or Mike Roberts, depending on how you know him, the creator of Dallas and Robo, the Juno Award-winning director of Rumble Seat, and for the Americans, the Junos are like the Grammys, but still with musical integrity. And he's also been the supervising director of an incredible show called Final Space. And if you're a Bojack Horseman fan, the title sequences, this is another one of his calling cards. But he's also just a super nice dude who was gracious enough to tweet back with us when we stumbled onto Dallas and Robo, which is a terrific show, and is going to endure both Lily and I today. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
And you're calling in from California, so we have the California seat filled today.
Yeah, I don't know where everybody is. I just realized.
Oh. So I'm in Virginia, and Lily.
And I'm in Spain on in the Canary Islands. Yeah.
Oh, that wins. That's the winner.
Oh,
It's not a contest.
I often get made fun of my internet connection, but sure.
We're very. Lily does everything Spanish style, and so she's often late to everything that we do, and most of the time is locked out of her house as we're beginning the recording.
I get into some shenanigans over here. So, and then Becky's in California as well. She's in San Fran.
So,
that makes sense.
Yeah. So she's in San Francisco, but she had to travel for this episode. But thank you for being here, Lily. Before we get going with Mike, how are you doing?
I am good. I have a beef to pick with you because you and your dear wife, like every time I think that your guys' movie taste can somehow come into like a realm of mine, you recommend a movie like Overboard for me to watch, and you're like, yeah, it was good, and the movie was unwatchable. The only thing I can compare it to like is maybe watching My Little Ponies if they were forced to like go in a hot tub and get thrown off a boat. I can't figure out what how I could describe this movie in any other way than that. And then, I'm
Anna Faris is a national treasure.
She is a national treasure, but no, that movie is just, it's so hard to do that to the original, which is a classic. And I was, yeah, and I'm good, but I have to say that last week or the week before, I told a story of a meeting I had with an important like executive who like a cockroach fell on his head during that meeting, and it was really, really bad. Then I was in a meeting with him 2 days ago at like a coffee shop, a very cool hip coffee shop, and I was trying to I could not keep a straight face as the Never Ending Story theme music came on in a muzak form, like you're in an elevator, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That kind of like sweet,
like
jazzy Never Ending Story, and I got
bossa nova
yeah,
beat.
of the Never Ending Story, and I was like, why is this happening to me? I could not pay attention fully because I kept like nodding my head along. So it's been a week.
It does sound like you're being gaslit. Like someone's just doing subtly weird things to this meetings you're having.
I'm being sabotaged.
Bill and Ted are dropping stuff from the future.
Yeah. Oh, good call. I like that. Bill and Ted. There's a potential Bill and Ted 3 coming, by the way.
There is one. I thought it was confirmed.
Yeah, I don't know, Mike. Have you heard about the Bill and Ted 3?
I've only read on like blogs that it's the on again, off again. I always think that's just people like something happened with contract negotiation and they're trying to sort of play hardball. And they come out and go, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it anymore because the meeting didn't go very well.
Oh, okay.
And who knows?
Oh, okay. Well, I hope we get it. I'm a big fan of, like, I know people don't like sequels, but, and this is going to segue right into our conversation with you, sir. But then something like Cobra Kai comes along, and YouTube Red puts out Cobra Kai, and that proves to you that if folks put a lot of heart and really care about where the story is going and stay true to what the promise of a particular property is, you can truly fall in love with any type of sequel or continuation of a story if it's not just a money grab.
Yeah, of course.
And so this is how we found our way to Mike Roberts, because we finished Cobra Kai, and then the first show that came on to be promoted afterwards was this incredibly funny show, but also has a ton of heart, called Dallas and Robo, which I'd love to hear how you describe it, but in my mind, as I've described it for listeners many times, it's like truckers in space, but with a ton of heart, and that has that real buddy comedy feel to it that if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, it's totally there, and it's got terrific voice actors and super writing and fun sci-fi concepts, and it's animated, which we're big fans of. And so we then
You've also described it as a show that you feel like somebody created in a lab just for you.
That's
which I like that.
That's totally true. We'll
get that's how I describe things that I like. I'm like, oh man, someone made that for me.
Oh,
just for you.
Yeah. That is 100% how I feel about Dallas and Robo. And so we tweeted out, and lo and behold, you and Andy Sipes, who I guess is one of your producers,
writers, right?
Yeah, he's a co-EP. He was a showrunner with Matt Mariska.
Were kind enough to tweet with us back and forth, and it meant so much to us. And so now we're thrilled to have you on as a guest. So, Mike, welcome again.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a pretty glowing review of the show. I appreciate it.
Oh man, it's
great.
It's totally a gem. I mean, really. And so I'll start with my first question before we get into all the usual bits and spare you from having to talk about your actual work, and we can get to just being movie fans. But the thing that I found in Dallas and Robo, and then another show that you worked on called Final Space, is this incredible sweet spot between comedy, action, and sincerity. And what I mean by sincerity is that with a lot of the adult marketed animation that I watch, there's always this overbearing edge of irony that almost it's like you don't feel like you're truly being allowed to enjoy and invest. It's like, oh, don't love these guys too much.
Right. It's like you have to be made fun of a little bit for watching a cartoon as an adult.
Sure.
And I found in both of these projects that you were involved in, I was both allowed to laugh at adult type of humor, but at the same time completely give myself over to the relationships between the characters and be allowed to say, wow, Dallas and Robo are friends and they find their way back to each other, and they're very different, but they mean a lot to each other. So my question to you is, how do you as a director do that, or a creator do that, and on top of that do that with animation, a medium that there's a lot of baggage that comes with that in terms of how serious people are supposed to take it.
Well, I mean, I think first of all with Dallas and Robo, I mean that was because I'm probably this might be a weird way around the question, but I feel like that's the tone, that's the thing that movies do really well, and no one questions from movies. You get like Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, or even like Ant-Man or so. I'm trying to think of recent examples.
It made me think of Guardians.
Yeah,
and Final Space also makes me think of Guardians.
Yeah, and I think that that tone is very comfortable with people, and I think people are used to it, but it is mostly the domain of film. So with Dallas and Robo, it was always supposed to be, I remember, frankly, the whole thing that the Dallas and Robo came from was when I was in, I guess, high school or even younger, a movie called Space Truckers came out. Yeah. And I remember thinking, because I'd been working on an idea where there were space truckers in it, and thinking, man, this is 80% there, or maybe you could argue 20% there, but it just was like a great idea that was so insane that just really stuck with me. And then you have, because you always I always want to make like Smokey and the Bandit, the animated series, or Knight Rider, the animated series. But how do you kind of justify it? And the way you justify it is you go, well, let's make it insane and put it out in space. So I feel like the tone in adult animation is always like, I think that's a great way to put it, that you sort of have to make fun of yourself for watching it. And I just think that's a hangover from a time where people had to convince you to watch The Simpsons. When that came out, it was part of the story was that it was a grown-up cartoon, was a narrative you had to tell. You had to be like, don't worry, this is for adults. And we're slowly working out of that. And I think that's where YouTube Red, places like that come in, because they're not so stuck on 4-quadrant numbers, Yeah. Like, so well, I think that's basically it.
Since you say that, I was reading an article. I don't know if it was the New York Times. Well, there's a bunch of articles, obviously, about Dallas and Robo. And one of them was mentioning how it was, so great that YouTube Red picked it up, and or I don't know exactly how it works, but you know what I mean. Yeah, said yes. They said yes. They did. And the funniest thing is that when YouTube Red came out, I remember being like seeing it and being like, oh, another one of those. Like, we have Hulu, we have Netflix, or the HBO, the Showtime, like all of these. I'm like, how could there be just one more streaming service that people are going to buy into? And YouTube is what it is already. Mm-hmm. And then you realize that, oh my God, there are so many great ideas. Like, I felt kind of silly because then after, we obviously I saw Cobra Kai and Dallas and Robo, and then the idea is that, well, you know what, thankfully there are this many, because it's a great opportunity to give more opportunities for cool shows that you won't get on, a normal. It's amazing The Simpsons, of course, is still lasting this long on a network, show, but probably the best content is not on those shows. So the more the merrier.
Yeah, I think that's I think what it is. Right now we're in that time where all the channels are trying to get their roots down. So you get a lot of interesting ideas that do or don't resonate with the audiences, but I think a lot of stuff is going to get made that otherwise wouldn't. That's, I think, the most exciting thing. Like, I think Dallas and Robo is like I love the idea. I just think it's a risky one to take on if you're trying to compete with The Simpsons. And that's where something like that new Matt Groening show, is a lock. It's a perfect idea. It's brilliant. It's going to, no, I've never seen it, but all the pieces fall into place for it, and I understand why that could be the next big hit. Because it's but Dallas and Robo is like a niche. Who's it? What's the audience? You have to ask yourself what the audience is, and I think until you see it, you don't really know if you're part of that audience.
And I think that's what's so funny though is that those types of shows where you're like, I don't exactly know who this is for, but the people.
But I like it.
I come back to your previous point. The people who like it love it because they feel like it was made for them. Like that's
sure.
If I go back to what Lily was mentioning about what I said is that, and I think YouTube. I mean, I assume they've already written you checks, but they owe you a check because when I signed up for Cobra Kai, or when I signed up for YouTube Red, I fully intended to do the 30 days, watch Cobra Kai, and jump off.
Yeah.
And then when I watched Dallas and Robo, like the timing originally took me a little bit over the 30 days, but also I was like, okay, you guys have my attention. I am going to stay subscribing because I'd like to see Cobra Kai again, but if there was like a form I could fill out that said YouTube Red, I am a subscriber because you have Dallas and Robo, then I'll fill out that check form because I kind of want to see what they would do next. And I promise we're not like this is how we talk about the show. We really love it. We're not like sucking up to you.
Oh no, definitely are not nicer than we have to be. I can promise.
So you on that show, you have some of the voice actors are some of my favorite people, and if you've been listening lately to the podcast, I've been down a little bit of a wrestling rabbit hole, and I generally think Cena, who I didn't even know was a wrestler at first, is hilarious, and he's perfect on the show. And Kat Dennings, been around forever, but in that group is Stephen Root, who I think is one of the all-time greatest actor, comedians, whatever. He does everything, and Do you have a character on this? So for me, that's the one where when I saw Stephen Root in the credits, I was like, okay, I'm in. Do you have a character on the show who the voice and the actor and how you design that character came out exactly how you would have imagined it, or you got the dream person to do that voice?
Well, I mean, I feel like Robo was always that one was a bit more vague because robots you hear in your head as anything from like Kit from Knight Rider to like Marvin the paranoid android from Hitchhiker's Guide. So you just have these. I feel like that one was very malleable. It wasn't a specific thing. So when John Cena came on board, and he sounds like a big guy, which is like funny. His voice sounds like his physical presence, and he's really confident and sounds really smart for he sounds like a big smart dude, and so it just kind of fit. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, we were looking for John Cena. It's just that John Cena made it his own. But I would say Dallas is probably the example of what you're talking about, because Dallas was one of those ones where we didn't know what it was going to be, and then as soon as Kat Dennings came in and did one line, it basically reversed history, and then from then on, awesome. All you could think of was her. So, and I like that kind of casting where it. I mean, by the way, that happened for Robo as well. I just think that people were more attached to what Dallas would sound like. So therefore, when it retroactively erased all of our memories, it was more of it was like, okay, thank God, because John Cena was involved so early that I don't think there was any anxiety about how that was going to play out. Whereas Dallas,
you really have to get it right, because as the New York Times said, and this I do have a proper source, they said, and I'm going to quote, "The motor mouth Dallas saved from being unbearable by Ms. Dennings' unstoppable charm." And when I was reading that, and I was like, maybe that's true. I was like, if it wasn't that voice, who I love, I mean, having a quite hoarse trucker voice myself, I feel like I commiserate, and I like that, I don't know, her like tone and the way she says things and her dry wit, and her character is extremely enjoyable. I think a lot of it has to do with that voice that is able to say those words, and of course, like her look and everything like that. Now the art and all that, but amazing casting there.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, she just had. Yeah, it's funny. It's sort of, I would call that's on the, what do they call that? It's a compliment salt, where it's like saved from being unbearable. It's sort of like
right.
But exactly. I mean, I know exactly.
A backhanded compliment.
No, but I'll take it, because that was, I mean, the genesis of Dallas, is I always tell, and it's, I mean, I tell it, but it's also true, is my wife, she has this.
I read that.
Out, yeah, like we'll go out and have a couple of drinks, and then she kind of gets it in her head that she needs to sort of say the most shocking thing to the closest person. Like for example, like she'll see a couple on a date, and she goes up and is like, "When are you getting married? When are you having kids? Who's it's like that kind of thing." And you just watch their faces. And I have this like mixture of being amazed by it and also horrified, like happening exactly parallel, So
great inspiration. And she sounds like a woman after my own heart.
Yeah, no, it's the best. So. And it's hilarious, and it's funny, and so when that's essentially the dynamic between Dallas and Robo, is Dallas saying the thing and Robo kind of trying to interpret it for humans. And that's what I mean, the thing I like about the dynamic is it's Dallas, who's arguably a bad person, and Robo, who's a robot, who's a better person. And they're kind of about the meaning of life. You know, that was the log. Like that was what I would say in the pitch meetings, or even before pitch meetings, because originally this thing was like a pitch for a show called Trip Tank. You know, even before that, it was like some comic strips I was doing. So it's been around, of cooking for a while.
That's really cool. And just to take the compliment salt all the way into the compliment zone.
Sure.
I think, and I don't know your wife, but she is also associated with the program, correct?
Yeah,
she is also
the voice of in the cold open of the first episode. Yeah, she was
the couple that keeps recurring, which is an amazing bit.
That was such a bit. I love that bit.
So but I think like the part about unbearable ties more to the notion of not being a good person, which is that there are some people who speak and behave that way in this world, and you don't want anything to do with them. But then there's certain people that there's a warmth in there, and there's a being able to say it in a way that you can feel a bit of a connection and a charisma that then makes it all that enjoyable. So that's actually how I would see Kat, which is that Kat could be a Kat. Kat's the actress. Dallas could be a kind of dark. She's a pretty dark character, right? She's an alcoholic. She cheated in racing. Sure. But Robo wants to be her friend, and so you kind of want to be her friend too, and you see that friendship because she has that charm and that charisma, and it all works. That's built into the character, I think, as much as anyone who would do the voice. So,
well, and listen, it's well trodden territory. Wait, is that the right word? The path is well worn, and I say that, you know, like that's like Mal from Firefly talking about other kind of made for me shows, you know, like
he loves that show.
Yeah, I mean, but he's the perfect example of the anti-hero. He to his, I mean, and it's funny, they just did it in Mission Impossible 6. Like I'm kind of obsessed with that movie right now because of how many things they got right with the Ethan Hunt character along those lines of willing to destroy everything for the singular point that he's trying to make.
Wow.
Which is great because that's what I don't want to spoil the movie, but like that's what leads to the audience going, is this person's what are these person's motivations, you know? And that obviously that's not quite or at all what Dallas and Robo does, but you want to have that feeling of this person could make a bad choice. How will they make a good choice? There's no drama if you know. That's I think why people have trouble with Superman, because it's always going to be the right choice. So there's no drama or there's no worry about what they're going to do.
Or then when he makes an odd choice, like at the end of the Man of Steel movie, and he kills Zod, and you're kind of like, that doesn't, you know, they've backed you into this corner with him. That then,
sorry, keep going.
No, go ahead.
I'm an interrupter. I don't mean to.
No, you should be. You're at our dinner table. That's the way it is.
No, I was just going to say about that. Like, I'm actually an apologist for that moment in Man of Steel. I think the issue is they didn't earn it in the movie.
Oh,
you know, like
that's a good point.
Think him
but I think it's also. I think it's also because he sounds like he's from Brooklyn. That's the problem.
No, listen, the problems are huge. I'm just saying, I think that moment, I think people fixate on, and I think were it earned, people would. I think when they were making the movie, they probably went, "Oh my God, this is gonna like inform the future, and it's gonna blow everybody's mind." And I'm not from a writing perspective, I get it. I just think that
it has to be executed well, though.
Exactly. Well, you get executed. It's the fun.
Cool.
I got some industry terms in my pocket.
No, I mean because he executed General Zod.
Oh no!
Sorry, we're not that swift, Mike. So I'm gonna wrap. I'll wrap up our little interview part so we can get to the us all geeking out together, not just Lily and I geeking out on you. Is my daughters, believe it or not, have watched. My daughters are 7 and 5. Are you a parent? Do you talk about your I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
A great wife and a great kid.
Okay. Awesome.
I mean, he's okay. He's fine.
We all have different people have different comfort levels talking about family. Anyways, so I've got 2 daughters, a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I like to push the envelope of what they're allowed to watch.
Sure.
And I have watched some Dallas and Robo with them, and
social services might get wind. It's to the point where it's a bit much.
I feel like we're constantly on the razor's edge. My son he's self-centered or self-censors. He's like, nope, not that one.
That's like Shy's little one. She'll be like, no, Daddy, this is too much.
Yeah. So Dallas and Robo, I've watched a little bit with them, and my older daughter, who in particular has taken a cartooning class, and she loves art and writing, and she wanted me to relay to you one thing was, she says, please tell him that she loves the show and thank you for making it.
Great. Okay.
So, and then she asks two questions. One is, are you famous? She wants to know if you're famous. And then the other one she wants to know is, what was your favorite cartoon growing up?
Oh, okay. Well, the first question I think is I'm still working on respected by my peers. I think that's the first stage. And then my favorite cartoon growing up. Oh, wait, did you guys just hear a bing from my instant message there? Is that going to mess you guys up?
No.
Nope, didn't hear it. No.
Don't worry. This is one step above Wayne's World. Okay.
Okay. No, I'll take Wayne's World. So my favorite cartoon growing up. Oh man, that is a tough one. I usually had really obscure likes. Like my favorites were like Mask or like.
Oh, dude, Mask is amazing. I've watched Mask with my kids. They love Mask. This is gonna blow their mind when they hear this.
Yeah, Mask was good. Real Ghostbusters was a big one for me when I was growing up.
I love that.
But I mean, like that's like a tough one because it's like there's so many. But you know what? I'll go with Silverhawks. Because I remember having a singular obsession with that show, like to the point where I was like, Thundercats, what's wrong with you guys? These guys are in space.
Yeah, Bluegrass was the one with the guitar.
I mean, it's so bad looking back.
They're like, can you, Mike? I would enjoy this if you could just pitch the concept of Silverhawks to my sister Lily. Lily, play the executive for just a moment. Go.
Okay, so we're having a lot of success with Thundercats, right? Mm-hmm. What if we did exactly that, but they're in space?
There's cats.
Well, no, they're not cats. They're like birds, I guess. So they're like birds, right? And they still have a ship.
'Cause that's so much better.
Yeah, and like one of them's he's not a bird, he's got a guitar. Are you with me? And what do you think about that? And instead of like a cool mummy dude in a pyramid, we've got like a guy who's in jail and he gets super mad and gets scary and big. And you're like, why doesn't he just stay scary and big the whole time? You're like, don't worry about it.
Something before this pitch.
I think.
Yeah.
Did you
it
take
sounds like
before
a
this
terrible
pitch?
show.
Yeah, it does. It is a terrible show.
But
I think that's the
But
problem.
you loved it, and that's what matters.
But that was an era of like all of those cartoons like were so cool. I know. I love those cartoons. I'm with you, man.
Yeah, like I think like you get, and I think it's that feeling of, everyone looks back and says, wow, the 80s, cocaine was a hell of a drug. That is like a weird
You can see it in the cartoons.
No question. Yeah. I mean, like sometimes I'm like, man, maybe I would have been a much more prolific creator if I followed those rules of the 80s. Like we have to be so careful now. All I have is coffee. This is so boring.
Well, on coffee, you're still making pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, I drink a lot of coffee. That's my you know what it is? My goal in life is to get famous enough that someone sends me free coffee.
Oh, I you know what? I know a guy who runs a coffee roasting thing. Maybe I'll hook you up. Maybe he'll send you some coffee.
I'll write a show about it.
Maybe he'll want his It's very cool. It's this amazing business he started as a side project, nonprofit that essentially empowers coffee growers in Central America to sell directly to roasters all around the world. Anyways, he's this amazing dude.
That sounds great.
Maybe you put a small and it's apparently great coffee, and he expertly pours it as well. So I'm gonna give.
Well, I'll go buy some.
I'm gonna give some shout out to Ben. Ben, you're a super guy. All right. So now we're getting into the youth,
The nitty gritty
of things that you like, and we are going to invite you to play. What I would say is do we have Lily? Is this a Delusions of Grandeur moment? Our signature game that I think we have a signature.
Oh no, absolutely. We have no, this is not. I have plenty of Delusions of Grandeur, which I accidentally called Illusions of Grandeur for a long time. And this is not one of them. This is like our most famous bit.
Okay,
it's a big deal.
So we're gonna invite you.
You're welcome, Mike Roberts.
No, I think the show seems much more structured than you guys make it out to be. Like I don't know if it's kind of like if you're negging yourself, but like I think the show when these segments are what make it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
that makes me happy. I love this segment. All right, so we're gonna play Buy Rent Meh. And Buy, Rent, Meh is the official rating system of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. And think of it in terms of you're sitting on your couch and you're making the decision to buy a movie, add it to your library, which means you're paying about $20 on iTunes, or maybe see it in the theater. Or rent it, meaning if it was the 80s, you'd be spending $4 to rent it from the, in our case in Montreal, Westmount Video. I don't know where you're Canadian as well.
Mm-hmm.
You were raised in which part of Canada?
Toronto, actually.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Toronto.
In Scarborough / yeah.
Oh wow, Scarborough.
Yeah, I know.
That's a legendary town, man. It's the
Scarborough is ironically very similar to L.A. in the kind of.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's got a.
Said no one ever.
No, I'll tell you why. They both have like a kind of a hapless, what is it? Nihilistic sprawl. Like you just kind of like, we're just gonna keep driving. This road just keeps going. You know, how many mini malls can you put in a place? How many strip malls can we fit?
Oh, that's wild.
Except that you get to the ocean on one side, which I think is, although they have the woods and stuff up north. I think it's like Twilight Zone LA or
that's
the other way around.
So Scarborough is important for two reasons, as far as I can tell, beyond now being your home and Twilight Zone LA, but of course the originating home of the Bare Naked Ladies, and
yes,
and an often used setting in the TV show Orphan Black. We
That's true. Yeah, no, my really good friend John Lang does all the sound for Orphan Black. He's like, I think he's like super involved in that show.
Oh my God. So not only are you, being recognized by your peers, but you're also famous by association because you know that guy.
Yeah, I mean,
that
John
show
Lang's,
is amazing.
He's one of those guys that like everyone who knows him's like, yep, he's one of the good guys.
Yeah,
that show is awesome.
That show is
it's hard for me to. We've argued about or discussed that I love that show so much, but a great part of my love comes from how Canadian it is. It just makes me feel like home.
It is very Canadian.
I love it.
I think like that show I'm obsessed with, even just for the sense of like how much that actress has to spend on set all day. Like that is an exhausting show to make.
And the lines that she has to learn.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, she is, as far as I'm concerned, the best actress. Like not like best actress for a particular year or an award. She's the best actress. Someone brings me someone else, I'll try to convince me, maybe, but she's got the, as John Cena might say, she has the title belt as far as I'm concerned right now, Tatiana Maslany. So
no, there's no question she got that role. Like she got that role.
Buy, rent is, like I said, you're kind of middle of the road, and meh, you get to kind of define what meh means. Meh doesn't have to be you hate it.
Changes.
It really depends on the way you say it. And so it's however you say it in the moment. You explain it. So we came up with a few fun categories for you. We may or may not play along. You can ask us to play along.
The first category is impossible, so have fun with that.
So I decided to get a little bit nerdy with animation for you, if that's okay.
No, these are good. Yeah.
I'm going to throw 3 animators at you whose names start with B. Legends. Don Bluth, who gave us
the second one.
American Tail. Ralph Bakshi, who gave us the super weird version of Lord of the Rings and the Mighty Mouse we watched in the 80s. No, he didn't do The Hobbit. That's Rankin and Bass.
He didn't do The Hobbit? Oh.
No, he did just the weird Lord of the Rings. And
who did isn't there a Hobbit that's like that?
Yeah, but that's Rankin and Bass. That's just more straightforward animation.
Yes, yeah, okay.
And then a more contemporary dude, Brad Bird.
Never heard of him.
You serious?
No, I'm just joking.
I'm like, kidding.
I heard John obsessed.
Okay, I'm pretty sure.
Or Bluth, because no one has, but Brad Bird he gets.
And I realize this is tough. These are people in your industry that Lily cheats.
Oh my God, this one is not tough. The second one is tough. I'll just do it for you, Mike. This one's super easy.
Oh wait, no, I guess I could go, right?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, okay. You go.
I'm slowing the whole thing down. I'm terrible at this. Okay, Don Bluth. I mean, he's like he was the only guy to sort of take on Disney and win for a little while, and I feel like he sort of well, I don't know if he's the only one, but I'll say he's famous in my lifetime for doing that. And I think what he did was basically shake up how things get made and what's good and what's bad. And all the Bluth films are. Essentially, I'm sure he went, God, I hate making all these kind of saccharine safe movies, and then he's sort of the John DeLorean movies or of our animation where he went and made the crazy films that I'm sure he was ranting and raving about wishing to make while he was working at Disney. And he went to Ireland and did it. And you know, my family are Irish immigrants when they were teenagers. So it's like, I get it.
Oh, wow.
Like it's like a cool, I don't know. I have a lot of affection for him and the stuff that he made. So I would say, God, where would I put him? I'll put him, I know the order already is buy Brad Bird, rent Don Bluth, only because of my, like I said, love for Brad Bird, and then meh for Ralph Bakshi because I think of him like, I don't know, he's like a Joseph Boys in a sense. Like I don't always get it, but I know why he's important, and
Gotcha.
So like I wouldn't probably I have a hard time sitting through like a Bakshi film, and that makes, I'm sure that there's people who'll be angry that I say that, but Don Bluth, I think
no one is going to be angry that you said that.
Well, I don't know. Us animators can be pretty focused.
Everybody's
Patient.
fine with it.
Very patient.
And then
Everybody's
Brad Bird is, sorry, I keep talking over you guys.
No, that's fine.
Brad Bird is like, you know, he is. When I saw The Iron Giant, I was like, okay, we this is what animation can be. That I actually think Iron Giant more than anything else was that to me was the I guess the starter's pistol for adult content.
I think that makes sense. I think that is definitely like I feel like a shared feeling. I know that for our brother-in-law animator person, I know that movie is super important.
Yeah, and I saw like
that same way.
Someone dragged me to it too. Like my friend Diego in animation school, was in classical animation school when that came out. It was a real change in the way we were all looking at stuff.
Wow,
so yeah, so I had to buy Brad Bird, and also Ratatouille is my favorite animated film.
Oh yeah.
I think really, Vlad likes that movie a lot too.
Oh, there you go.
I think it's art. It's one of the few animated films that is like a film without needing to mention the animation, and that's really hard to do.
No, that's really cool. That's a cool way to look at it. All right, okay. So you have created one of my favorite sci-fi heroines in Dallas, but now I want to put you on the hot seat. And
this one's impossible.
And work with some of and see by rent some of the greatest sci-fi heroines of all time. Ellen Ripley from Alien, who Lily, by the way, is like, she doesn't have a first name. Stop.
I was like, I cannot believe on the notes you put her name as Ellen Ripley.
It does kind of diminish it a little.
It's like insulting her.
Yeah.
It's just Ripley.
Ripley also sounds like ripped, and has got a lot of good sounds. Yeah.
Now I didn't even know her name was Ellen, and I'm a little bit annoyed at the movie.
Like Barbara
calling
Ripley.
Her. Exactly. Like Tiffany Ripley. They might as well have called her Tiffany.
That was what Newt took on, actually.
Oh, there you go. Oh, good callback with Newt. That's awesome. Oh, man. We could do a whole episode just on the Alien franchise.
Oh, of
course. The cold open of Alien 3. There's a whole episode there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Princess Leia, Organa.
Okay. Yeah.
And Sarah Connor from Terminator, who Lily just highlighted to me in the news.
She's back.
She's back in whatever the next version of the Terminator movie is. So
I like that the new version of reboots is sequels. I feel like the pendulum swung back a little bit. It just, you know what I mean? Which is, I think, good. I think that's an interesting way to handle it. God, this is a tough one. Okay. Do I have? Is it mess up your thing if I talk through my process?
No, that's exactly how it works, man.
Exactly, it's like therapy. You just talk it through.
So I feel like Ellen Ripley immediately is in a category of her own, because it's like she dealt with the impossible foe, because those movies genuinely create an impossible foe as you're watching them. And then when you get out, it's like, holy shit, barely. Everything's a barely, like, you know, like the Indiana Jones, the door's coming down and reaches in and grabs his hat. Like, that's Ellen Ripley in all these movies.
Yeah.
So Princess Leia, I think, Leia, she, the only thing I'll say is that her role in the first couple, God, this is a tough one. I'm even like someone who thought her, floaty stuff in Last Jedi.
I was gonna say she did fly through space. So
I like that. Yeah. Okay. So here I'm gonna put Sarah Connor.
Wait a second. I'm sorry.
Wait. What?
You liked that? Her Peter Pan move.
Here's the thing. Here's what I like that in principle, because I like the idea that she's sort of like a pocket Jedi. I think that was a really cool
pocket
thing.
Jedi. Okay.
So it's like she's like, because and by the way, I am forgiving the moment, not justifying the movie,
Oh,
because
okay.
I have a lot to say about that movie.
Oh.
But
I has to go back to therapy if you bring it up. Like, I'm not kidding.
No, okay.
Like,
Well, let's not. Well,
affected his psyche deeply.
but think about how great it is that she's a general, and like some idiot comes up to her and is talking shit, and she's like, "Don't worry, you will lower your tariffs," And then like he goes, "Yes, I will lower my tariffs," because she's a Pocket Jedi. So that floating through space thing made that sold that for me. That she had this otherworldly presence that justified her being the leader of the whole thing. Now, how it visually was, how
I'm saying then we can discuss it. Should it maybe perhaps be executed in a different way?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. The execution, I'm not justifying, but I think that did a lot for her legend, and that I really liked. So I will I'm gonna go. I think I can do this one. I'm gonna meh Sarah Connor, and the main reason is because I think only in Terminator 2 did you really get an impression of who that is, and I think she was flawed enough that it wasn't. There's no like I wouldn't pick Sarah Connor as the leader of my mission, whereas Ellen Ripley or
that's a very good point.
So I think
you're right. She's kind of a little bit unstable in terms of she's not exactly reliable as a leader, although she's a badass.
Total badass and a genuine, like, it's the same. I wouldn't pick like Bruce Willis from Die Hard. It's like a crapshoot. So Princess Leia and Ellen Ripley. I think I got to go with Ellen Ripley because she's cooler, and I'll just I think that's straight. So it's by Ellen Ripley, Ren, Princess Leia, and meh Sarah Connor.
Now these can never be right or wrong, but that was correct. Okay, so now I get another geek question for you.
Yeah,
so you're in 80s now. If I do the voice guys, are those familiar to you? If I do the 80s voice actors,
I definitely know who what they sound like.
Okay, so the Transformers in the 80s. This one we can go quickly. So I love those 80s cartoons, and some of those voices to me can never be recreated, and they never have been effectively. And within Transformers, you had 3 of the actors who were so significant, and one of them is Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
Chris Latta as Starscream, also he was Cobra Commander. And then Frank Welker as Megatron, but Frank Welker also is kind of one of the, titans of voice as far as I know. What would you do with those guys?
Well, I think you got to put Peter Cullen in by, because I feel like that ends up being the narrator of your life.
That would be a great movie. I would watch that.
That's what, I feel like even the movie trailer guy is like, he's got a picture of Peter Cullen on his wall, So it's like he sort of set a standard. It's same with when you have like Orson Welles. Like, there's no other voice like that. So
I like that image of him having instead of like the Leonardo DiCaprio poster or whatever.
Yeah,
he just has Peter Cullen on his wall.
This one's for you, Pete. And then he's like, tonight, in a world.
In a world.
Chris Latta, I would say I would go as my Rent, because it's just so. And you said it, Cobra Commander. Those are both such iconic sounding things that there's comedy in it. There's a lot actually being done with that voice. It's funny, it's scary, it's real stakes, but you also want to spend time with that character. And then I would say Megatron, Frank Welker, not as familiar with his other work, and I would say Megatron is the least memorable of all that. Yeah. So I'm going to have to, by default, go with Matt, and apologies to Frank Welker. I'm sure he's a fantastic performer.
Absolutely. Okay, all right. Okay, so...
no, wait. Can't I go?
No. Yes.
He has no idea what we're talking about.
My bye is the girl that voiced Ariel in The Little Mermaid. Okay?
That is like concocted in a DNA lab voice of a Disney character.
Okay, and I have nothing else to say about this topic.
Okay. All right. Last but not least, so I picked 3 80s movies that are kind of cult favorites. Goonies is bigger than others, but Goonies, Buckaroo Banzai, Big Trouble in Little China.
Which the tagline from Dallas and Robo is a play on, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's funny. Those
and the poster kind of looks like it. There's like a poster that kind of has a big trouble.
Oh God, I'm forgetting the guys. There's a guy who did that. Oh man, I would love it if you mentioned him in the post credits. I don't have his name off the top of my head. What's that?
The Shoutouts, sure.
Yeah, I'll find it and we'll shout it out to him. He did a great job on that poster. And I think that, to be honest, that was the Cruise application, because I like the Trouble in Little China, but it's not on my obsessive list. So it's, like I love John Carpenter but Big Trouble in Little China is great to me. But the problem with that movie is it scared me terribly as a kid. So I didn't get into the perpetual cycle of it.
You're with the right crew. We got scared of everything as kids.
Is the name
sorry.
of the artist Noah Patrick Pfarr?
That sounds right.
Okay. Because he has a website where he talks about making
Yeah.
it. So.
No, it's awesome, and it's one of those ones where they were like, "Hey, Mike, someone did a Big Trouble in Little China poster." I was like, "Oh, how good is that going to be?" And then I saw it, and I was like, "Whoa!" So they did a great job, or he did a great job. But yeah, so that movie on here. Okay, I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not the hugest Goonies fan, and
interesting, and the plot thickens.
Yeah, and then Buckaroo Banzai I think is too weird to not like, but too weird to not hate. Wait, it's right. It's almost like it gets a pass. It's like if the aliens came down and went, "We made you a movie," you'd be like, "Oh, thanks." And that's
That's amazing.
Except that it has Jeff Goldblum in it, so those are some pretty hot aliens.
No,
but that's right. Like
Peter Weller is amazing. It's there's so much good stuff in it.
But if you're right, if aliens found humans attractive, Goldblum and Weller would be at the top
in
of
the
the
80s.
list.
These are like these. You guys are human, incredible specimens.
But also
welcome,
possibly,
and they just hand us that movie.
Possibly able to mate with aliens, right? Like you don't look at Tom Cruise and think that guy could mate with a Martian, but Peter Weller
definitely can.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like it's like you can scale his eyes up 90%, and you still have Peter Weller. That's a great example for Jeff Goldblum. But wait, didn't he play an alien in another movie? It was like Earth Girls Are Easy or something.
Girls Are Easy. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, then he turned himself into a fly. There's a whole.
Oh man, see, that's a what is it? Testament to.
Testament.
Is that the right word? Oh my god.
Testament. Yeah.
Testament.
I've only had 6 cups of coffee, so I'm not kicking in yet. But my thing about Jeff Goldblum is he's like the fact that he can go through that movie and have sort of that body horror ending of that movie, and you still think of him attractive.
Oh,
I had an article with my sister about it. Exactly.
Yeah, like that's some intense stuff. Because you remember the Frankenstein? I think it was the Robert De Niro Frankenstein.
De Niro. Oh yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter, when she turns into the Bride of Frankenstein and then breaks the lamp over her head, I'm traumatized by that to the point where like I love her so much, and like one of my favorite movies is Fight Club, and I have a hard time like looking at her in that movie because all I can think about is her smashing that lamp.
I love this whole like confessions of Mike Roberts, like the things that terrified you.
I'm
enjoying
this too much, right? I'm like lost in this. So wait, I gotta do a buy rent. I would say buy.
No, but this is that you turn into an animated series.
So your buy rent man isn't just how much you love them; it's buy rent man.
Which ones you would turn? Yeah, creating their animated series.
I just would go with that's my gut. I stick by it. I think Buckaroo Banzai is like a close second because
to Big Trouble.
Yeah. Big Trouble first, Buckaroo Banzai second, because I feel like you can do a Rick and Morty thing with Buckaroo Banzai that's pretty linear. And then Goonies, I think, is the one that everyone has tried to make 50 times in different incarnations, and that is why I don't love that movie so much, because I feel like Goonies is a amalgamation of ideas rather than there's the why of that movie, because it's like, okay, kids and they're like, to me Goonies is done better by freaks and geeks, like that's where I'm at with that. Like,
that's such a great show.
That's a great comparison.
I think that the spirit of Goonies is alive in other places, and I'm not going to say Stranger Things. I like it, but I'm not the hugest fan of that show.
Well, I think it's obvious that
but I think whenever you get a really good group of kids solving a big thing together, and for me, this show on Netflix called Troll Hunters, the Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, that's great.
I once tweeted at the guys who run that show. I imagine, by the way, you and all the other like animation geniuses just like hang out and draw pictures for each other. This is in my head. The brothers Hageman. I tweeted once at them and I said, "Hey, this show's amazing. For my kids, it's becoming like a Goonies because they love the characters so much." And they wrote back and said, "Oh, that was one of the inspirations for that show." And in my head, I was kind of like, I kind of enjoy Troll Hunters more than Goonies, but I don't want to put them in the position to have to, to thank me for that, because I'm sure they don't want to upset anybody. Okay, cool. All right, so then now we're gonna talk about you play along for us. Now we are gonna do your topic, which you brought to us. Which at first, admittedly, when you first gave us some options, and I was talking to Lily, and I said, yeah, one of them's pre-1980 movies, but I'm like, we're just gonna talk about Dog Day Afternoon for like 25 minutes, and then Lily and I started listing movies before 1980, and we realized, oh, that was most of the movies we saw as kids because we were early 80s kids. It's not like, and I actually ended up having a terribly hard time coming up with my list, but I have a list. You got a list. Lily's got a list. Do we want to? Shall we do it like in a round, like number 10, number 9, number 8, number 7?
Do I have 10? 1, 2.
I didn't. I thought it was 5,
6,
but I can...
7, 8.
Oh,
9.
well, you know what? Why don't
I
we
have 9.
Why don't we do 5? And why don't we do 5 and then we can talk about some honorable mentions because 10 might take a really long time. All right. So all right, coming in at number 5, Mr. Roberts. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go with All the President's Men. By the way, I'm gonna preface this by saying that I tried to make like my go-to like watchable ones. So I'm not. This isn't like the best. This is kind of an obnoxious category.
These are ones that are close to your heart.
Exactly. Yeah. These are ones that I could watch any day, a million times over. That affect everything I do at all times.
If you judge me by my list, you'll think I have mental problems. So it's things that are close to your heart. End of story.
Okay. So we got. Number 5 is Alan Paul. I don't know how to spell his Pakula. All the President's Men with Woodward and Bernstein's story. I think it's like one of my favorite movies of all time.
Watergate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's about Watergate. It's sort of like it never gets old. It's the perfect example of how you talk through an entire film. What's that?
It's Robert Redford.
Yeah, Robert Redford. I mean.
And Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, it's like and because there's another one on my list that's similar, and it's way closer to the top of my list, and it's a similar like heroes of the 70s. But then we go to French Connection, William Friedkin. That movie just does so many things right, and it's like there's a scene in that movie for how to do almost anything you need to do in a movie.
Cool.
And then North by Northwest is my favorite Hitchcock movie because it's so watchable and feels very modern in spite of what it is. It's the movie that I would love to see. It's the movie I'd love to see animated. You know, like that one done by. I know it's not gonna happen and whatever, but
if I were to throw like, okay, so just to reference something else, we watched Rumble Seat in getting ready for this, which was your animated film, and you know how the way you do stuff with the backgrounds that are kind of moving, like the perspective and moving.
It's like a weird collage 3D effect.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking in terms of the North by Northwest animation? Is that what?
Yeah, that movie feels really surreal. By the way, those backgrounds are by a guy named Stu Jones. He's the best.
Cool.
It's so cool. Yeah. Awesome.
I think that movie just feels surreal the whole time. Like it really gets you. Even the fact with the way that they sort of cop on to him being the wrong guy doesn't even follow a narrative. I feel like they would try to justify that differently in modern movies. They just get into it. It's like they just pick the wrong guy, and the whole movie feels like that. When the paranoia, I mean, you know, there's books written about the crop duster scene, but just the way that feels, you're like, what's happening? Is this even real? And you start to want, like, there's so much drinking and weird stuff that goes on that just feels really surreal, and I think it would make a really cool surreal animated movie.
That's awesome.
Do you know what the tagline? Like, I love that. One of my favorite thing is taglines or like movie poster lines from the 70s or like whatever pre now. And the tagline from this movie is only Cary Grant and Alfred Hitchcock ever gave you so much suspense in so many directions. Imagine that being a tagline today.
I feel like I like the idea though. It's like, man, every weekend these guys are trying, but the only guys who can pull it off
do it in this many directions ever are these.
It's like people are tired out by it. They're like, oh, not another attempt. Okay, finally we got Cary Grant. Okay, let's see what these guys do.
That's awesome.
That tagline.
All right, so we got 3.
Yeah, and then the next one is Parallax View, which is another Alan Pakula film, which is probably that's my one that I bring up because it's the one that I feel like very few people have seen that I think is the most important of the list. Like that's a movie
I have never seen it, but now I will see it.
Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty is also the argument for like I'm sure that they were pissed off they couldn't get him to play Superman. I mean, I think Christopher Reeve's like the perfect Superman, but Warren Beatty in Parallax View looks like Superman.
Good point.
And anyway, but that movie's about like conspiracy and oh man, is it ever topical and cool? And it also has a run. Like it to me, it's a lot like Clockwork Orange, but much more kind of gritty and real. And then the number one is a recommendation of, I saw it because of a teacher in college named Jerry Zeldin, who's probably the most important visual storyteller of my, he's the person who taught me the most about visual storytelling.
Cool.
Jerry Zeldin at Sheridan, and he always was, bashing into our heads this movie Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum and Holly Hunter. Charles Laughton directed, and it is I think it's like 50. Oh my god, I gotta figure out what the year. It's like early 50s.
55.
55, yeah. And it does so many inventive things that shake you up about how, like, if you're like, God, I don't know how to frame this, or I don't know how to handle
Am
this.
I crazy? Did you just say Robert Mitchum and Holly Hunter?
Yeah, I did, except I meant.
You mean Shelley Winters?
55. You mean Shelley Winters, because Holly Hunter, I'm pretty sure, was born around then.
I do mean Shelley Winters, and
yeah.
I don't know. My brain.
Because you look at the cover with this woman holding on to this man's arm, I would be like, oh, that's a creepy movie if Robert Mitchum and Holly Hunter had an affair
the
in
Night of the
1955.
Hunter. So I see where you got confused.
Man, I wish I could have kept that going. I was like, no, it's Holly Hunter.
Oh my God, can I just tell you the tagline from this one?
Yeah, sure.
This morning we were married, and now you think I'm going to kiss you, hold you, call you my wife? That is what's on the poster.
Well, have you seen this one?
No, I've never heard of this one in any great detail.
It's kind of one of those things where you'll go through it and you'll go, this one is the film school for a lot of people. In the way that sort of what's the first one? I was going to say Orson Welles. Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is the movie that made movies better. This one is the secret movie that made movies better.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Which is great. That's cool.
Yeah,
we'll
it's really dark and intense. Man, there's some shots in this movie, like, I'll just say, like, there's an underwater shot that is, like, it'll stick with you. And it's really, really, really intense. They do things like, there's a scene where someone goes down to a cellar, and I think they built the cellar on a set and then pulled the camera way back. So it's, that thing that Wes Anderson would dig into where he'd pull the camera back and you'd see the whole set. They do that, but in the world. So it's not a gag. Like, you don't see the actual set. They like matte boxed it out, but you see this geometric shape of stairs going down to a cellar and then a boxed out cellar, and it's the craziest shot. You could never see it, because I'm also like a big fan of the way Hitchcock looked at things, and you ever hear him talk about those refrigerator shots? Is this a way to get down? I'm gonna do it if I get into why this movie's so great.
No, go for it, man.
Hitchcock always said it's pathetic, or he really laughs at when people do the shot from inside the fridge, where you're looking across the ketchup and seeing the face of the person. Because listen, I completely agree with his perspective. I think there's always time to break rules. But the reason that that's such an important thing to understand, and I think a lot of people get wrong, because most of the time I find new directors go, I just want to get the most dynamic shot, which is why a lot of things that, like, you see a lot of people who are doing their storyboard reel, and they always do that shot where someone gets thrown back on a 3/4. They get into that superhero pose and like skid backwards. You ever see that?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Every storyboarding reel I get has that shot in it. And listen, that's technically very hard to do, and it's really interesting and it's very dynamic. But story-wise, you sometimes watch like a lot of these cartoons and it's just people being thrown into the distance and skidding away on a 3/4 for half an hour. So like that is one of those things where POV, point of view, ends up being the most important thing about filmmaking. So when you hear Alfred Hitchcock laughing at a director for going inside the fridge, showing the person grabbing the food and their face, you're like, whose perspective is that? How could someone be in the fridge? Are you saying that there's someone in the fridge? No. Are you telling the story of the milk at the back of the fridge who's not getting drank? Like, that is what. And
I would add, if you watched G.I. Joe in the 80s, there was that very, very memorable now you know and knowing is half the battle thing about not hiding in refrigerators because you could run out of air.
You can get stuck.
So it's also a dangerous message.
That's really funny. No, but that principle is so important. Like if you're not asking yourself, why is the camera there in every single shot, you're kind of missing 10 steps. Like you're already handicapping the beginning of your storytelling.
Lily, I'm going to start asking you this when we're on vacation, when we're filming our home videos. In fact,
Okay.
we just posted a
Why?
video of Lily's bat mitzvah.
Oh, please. You don't. Already the internet was gifted this. The Mike Roberts does not need to see. And you did it on purpose because you could have just used the wide shot if you were so inclined to look at his Instagram or whatever.
I did actually see the thumbnail.
Oh, God.
Why was the camera there, Lily?
Why was the camera? There was a wide shot where you see everybody equally. Not me up close. You decided to start off the clip. I gave you permission to do this, but thinking you'd be on my side. There's way too much time exposition of me doing the Macarena alone.
Exposition. I don't think that's the right word.
Before the camera pans out and then we get the wide shot. Okay? That's all I'm saying.
Okay. With
Hitchcock.
that,
No one ever does the Macarena alone.
Oh.
that should be a tagline for a movie. No one ever does the Macarena alone. All right, Lily.
Okay.
Your top
you want
5.
me to go next?
Yeah.
Because I sound like a dummy compared to Mike's.
Oh no, I mean this is by
Literally.
far. This is borderline breaking our brand because we promised people nothing timely or important, and this is definitely like some of the most important, thoughtful things anyone's ever said.
I'm not gonna pick. I'm just gonna read my list. Like I don't need to give you like full examples, and I have a bit. I don't know. Okay, my first one is Bridge Over the River Kwai. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. That is 100% not on my list.
I still like it. I
know it's so famous, but it's definitely. I just wrote it down to sound important, but it's 100% not on my list. Okay, my true list would be Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Rebel Without a Cause.
But as I understand it, you never see the baby.
No, you don't see the baby.
Okay, all right. I like
Right?
that. I like that you don't see the
choice.
baby because I feel like in a lot of things.
It's not really about the baby.
All right. Anyways, okay. So Rosemary's Baby.
It's about Rosemary, I think a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Says it right now.
It's yeah. So that movie, Rebel Without a Cause.
Mhm.
That is truly one of my favorite movies. And the tagline, I don't even have to look this up. I know the tagline on that poster is, and they both came from good families. I love that. That makes the movie just so much better, even.
That movie's so ahead of its time. It's
Oh,
crazy.
so ahead of his time when James Dean screams at his parents, "You're tearing me apart!" Like that scene is amazing. That movie just blows my mind.
Didn't catch up until Reality Bites.
That's a good point.
No, I'm sure they did. I just think.
No,
Sorry,
that,
keep
like, or at least until like John Hughes.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. John.
You
Hughes,
know,
of course.
John Hughes. Okay, then I have Barefoot in the Park with Redford also.
Listen
Ooh, I
here,
can't
fancy
top that.
pants. Believe me, if there's anyone here that's like going to be like playing for the cheap seats, it's me. I don't even.
No, Barefoot in the Park is like a romantic movie with Redford and
It's
Jane
great.
Fonda. I love that movie.
I did feel like my list was too annoyingly masculine.
Well, most of the stuff I like, and Shy makes fun of me about it, is like when they're star-crossed lovers. That's all I need for a movie plot. So,
Wait, can I guess your next one?
sure.
Is it Romeo and Juliet?
No, you know
oh.
what? I thought about putting it on my list, but nothing beats the like Leo one, so I could do that to Claire Danes. And then I have okay. So to sound super snooty, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Belle de Jour, the movie. It's a French movie.
Oh.
Did you ever heard? That movie is amazing.
French from France or like French Canadian, like
No, it's
Passepartout?
French from France. It's Buñuel's movie. It's a Buñuel movie.
Oh,
That movie's amazing.
No, I've never seen it, but I know of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I don't think they're like too cool for taglines on their posters, but the actual poster of that movie is stunning. And
They're all
then,
just Je t'aime. It just says Je t'aime on every French movie poster.
yeah, like it's just so good. And then I had also I'll just read the rest of my list. I just had Some Like It Hot, Magnificent Seven.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
for our
Alien.
dad. That's our dad's
Yeah.
favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Then I had 12 Angry Men and Alien. That was my list.
That's good. Okay.
Alien's good. I just almost count that like it's a plus 5.
It's
on yours.
78, right? Or 79? 78?
79.
70.
9.
It's not 80, but
It's 79.
No, it's 70. I think it's 78 or
Yeah.
79. I mean, I would have put Superman on there. There's like a lot of, and like Godfather, there's a lot of movies
Sure.
like that I feel like don't almost count, even though Godfather.
well,
definitely
right.
counts.
Like I guess like Alien. These are just like so obvious.
No,
you know?
Alien is not. I mean, Alien is an important
So
film. That's
Alien was almost number 1 on my list. I had
Yeah.
I had a lot of like potential ties on mine. So mine are much more. So we'll go into 5, but then we should definitely talk about our stuff on the bubble. So my number, because I'd originally drawn a top 10. So the 5, 6, and 7 slots of my top 10 were all animated movies, not just because Mike was on, but because
Oh my God, no, but animated movies is like a completely different genre.
no, but these
oh
are
my God, you're gonna get people fighting you for saying that. Do you know that whole argument?
No, I don't. I'm just
Oh,
saying
yeah.
like I don't even know that argument. I'm
for
just putting
I'm
my
not
foot in
calling
my
you
mouth by myself.
No. Oh no, I'd hate to do that. I'm just laughing because like I'll get into that if you want to talk about that. But that's
Like
you should talk to
I
that.
think they can compete on the same stage, of course. Like they're better if not. You know, I don't think they should be like secluded in their own category. But I just mean there's so many that I love.
I completely agree with you, by the way. I'm just
Like that I
laughing.
would
at
do an
the internet.
entire category. Like you could do an entire category
So-
of horror.
So I talked to the 3 that would occupy my 5th spot, or my 4, 5, and 6. So I'm kind of cheating, or the 5, 6, and 7. And I rotated these around all in different places. Were the Rankin and Bass version of The Hobbit, and this is again on watch and rewatch. I mean, this is a movie I've watched hundreds of times.
Your
Yeah.
brother forces you to watch it. Does it count?
Yeah. Then the other one would have been Watership Down,
Oh God.
which
Ugh.
I haven't watched recently. Have you seen Watership Down, Mike?
I have, yeah, but not since. I mean, probably.
Since it scared the shit out of you as a child.
Yes.
Lily, you know how few books I've read. That is one of the few books I've actually read, even
You might
after
be
having seen the
confusing
movie.
it with the movie.
No, I'm not. I love that movie. I love all the stuff going on, and I'm sure if I watch it again now, I'm not ready to watch it with the kids yet because it's particularly
Oh
violent.
God, don't do that to them.
And then
no.
the animated Robin Hood Disney was my other.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Ah,
and
that's such a great movie.
still the best version of Robin Hood I ever saw, and still my
You guys,
favorite Disney.
do you guys know there's a new Robin Hood coming out? They're doing it again.
Is it with foxes? Because if it's not with foxes, I'm not interested.
No, it's with the kid from the Kingsman.
Oh, I like Taron.
Yeah, I
Egerton.
did read about that. Man, I love the man. I have like said the best love-hate relationship with the Kingsman movies.
Oh, I like that. Well, okay, so I'll finish my list. We can do the Kingsman.
Yeah,
so,
finish it,
So,
yeah,
so that
finish
was my number 5 slot, which was 3 movies. So it would be one of those animated movies. The Hobbit was where I landed right before I wrote it down.
Yeah.
And number 4 would be Animal House, which I recognize probably couldn't be made today for a lot of reasons, or a lot of the jokes. But
Yeah, that should have been on my list too. That movie's so good.
I've watched that movie again hundreds of times. Could watch it again 100 more times. I know it by heart. But I also love when you talk about. I don't know again what the film school answer to this per se would be, but for me, I feel like so many movies can trace their DNA to Animal House. Like,
Sure.
There's no Hangover with Animal House. There's no Old School. There's no whatever.
American Pie.
There's no American Pie. None of those without Animal House. And one of the things I loved about Animal House is that I had seen it. I saw it after I'd seen a lot of the movies from our era, the Revenge of the Nerds and things like that. All of those movies have decidedly happy endings. But when you watch the end of Animal House, the end of Animal House is just abject chaos.
Yeah.
And the characters are kind of like miserable. I mean, some good things happen to them, but it ends in total chaos. And
That's a good point. Like lives are ruined.
Right,
at the
like
end of that movie.
Old School, like the movie Old School. I love the movie Old School, but it ends with like a goofy competition and everybody wins in the end. And I feel like Animal House is just craziness, the craziness of its ending.
Do you want the tagline from that movie?
Yeah, sure.
Just to show you how things have changed since the 60s to the 70s. It was the Deltas against the rules, and the rules lost.
That's pretty accurate. So then
I'm looking at the site here, and it says that it's a romance comedy, which is a hilarious way to categorize.
there's no good romance in that movie. I mean, most of the romance in that movie is like illegal.
I wonder if they call Stripes a romance comedy because it's like they're about the same, as far as like the romance aspect of it.
Stripes that's a cool movie too. Or at least the first half is really cool.
Sure, it's got good stuff in it for sure.
Okay, so then number 3, 2, and 1 could have all taken the 1 spot, but I landed based on essentially how many times I've watched each one. Alien, which for me, I loved as a kid, and I love the Alien franchise, but it's actually, as an adult, rewatching it, I've realized how perfect I think that movie is. How, like, I don't need anything changed in that movie. I don't need anything updated. Any update they've tried to do to Alien, in my view, now that I've seen, and I love all of the movies. I've seen all of them, even the bad ones I kind of like. But that one is a masterpiece, and it's terrifying, and the acting in it is awesome. All of the actors are kind of heavy duty. Like when I suspect when you saw that movie the first time, you assumed Tom Skerritt and Yaphet Kotto and Ian Holm were the main characters, and
Yeah, for sure.
all those guys get offed. To me, there's just, that movie is awesome, and the original cut. There's a director's cut that's like a little bit longer that actually ruins some of the tension for me, but the original cut of Alien to me is perfect. And then The Godfather, the original Godfather, the first one. I'm not a Godfather 2 guy.
Not the third one? Are you sure?
That's a movie that I would love to see, kind of like like, they do the Phantom Menace recuts, I just read that, what's his name? Topher Grace? I think it's Topher Grace did his own cut of The Hobbit. I read that in a magazine.
Yeah, I saw one of them. He actually does a really good job.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, you saw one. Jeez, that's cool.
Yeah, no, they're good. They actually they do a thing. Sometimes those things seem kind of like vain and weird, and I don't know. I think he adds to them. There's a reason he does it. I think he justifies the quest.
Yeah, he describes it as like his woodworking, which I think is cool. I want to see his Hobbit cut, because I think that the 3-movie version of that is a disaster. It's so oppressive to watch.
Yeah, no, he really knows what he's doing.
And then I got to put it at the top, even though I'm still traumatized from The Last Jedi. Star Wars, that's the single most important movie I saw in my whole life, and it's it's always gonna. It can't not be in the first slot. It just can't.
I get it. It does hold up too, which is crazy if you think about it. It's like a victim of its time. There's nothing else like it in that era of sci-fi. Other than Alien, but Alien's like a completely different thing.
Yeah, and I think, and again, those are 2 movies that every other movie in their genre,
the tracing of the DNA
has the DNA of those movies. Some others that were on we can talk about our bubble. On our bubbles was, so this is a movie that I saw when I was probably about 9 or 10 years old on the couch in the basement of our Uncle Mario and Aunt Jan's house in Philadelphia, probably when we were visiting for Passover, and it was just on the midday. They had like a midday kung fu movie hour
of course they did,
in Philly on the local channels, and it was a movie that, through the grace of the internet, so I remembered it from having seen it, right? Think about that. You see some random movie, not with subtitles, not subtitles, with dubbing in the middle of the day, and then you don't see it again for 25 more years. And I was like, the internet is there. I'm going to go down this hole and I'm going to find this. And if you Google hard enough, and I put in all of the things that I remembered from the movie and eventually found my way to it. It is a movie called Crippled Avengers, which is a Shaw Brothers movie. I mean, I didn't know anything about the Shaw Brothers. It's a Shaw Brothers movie directed by Chang Che, and it stars the guys who are known as the Venoms. They did a bunch of actors who did a whole bunch of movies together. The first was the 5 Deadly Venoms, and it is about.
Oh yeah, I've seen 5 Deadly Venoms.
Oh, so 5. So it's the second one in that series. It's the second one in that series. And it is about one guy gets blinded by the evil villain, one guy gets made deaf, one guy gets his legs chopped off and has to build iron legs, and another guy gets his brain squished and just kind of acts all silly.
Completely plausible.
So that one is a huge favorite for me. And then I had the Magnificent Seven and MASH on there.
Oh man, MASH. Oh man.
Again.
You know what? I have to interrupt. My favorite movie of all time is The Long Goodbye by Robert Altman.
Oh,
so like
really?
that, yeah, that one, that's my favorite movie. Like it's like if I had, that's my Take It to the Island movie.
Oh, wow,
really?
That's cool.
And you just reminded me about that with, oh my God, what did you just say?
Elliot Gould?
Yeah, with MASH, because
with MASH.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's him and Elliot Gould again. Yeah, that MASH it's similar to Animal House in that like it's kind of a rogue, like the whole thing is just kind of rogue.
Totally, it's like skits.
It's not even the show is. I mean, the show's great, but I don't love the show the way I love the movie. I think the movie is much edgier and more fun.
The show takes the realness completely out of it. You know, like the movie is like, what's so great about it is you get this like window of actual people in that in that world.
Yeah.
You know, and the show just makes it a cartoon.
Yeah, especially when the show kept going.
Yeah.
Here we are, we're like, oh yeah, one of the greatest TV shows of all time. We're like, meh.
Listen, I get it. I mean, there's lots of like rusty sitcoms that I'm sure. I always wonder if like my son's gonna feel that way about Seinfeld, but I feel like MASH is great, but it's super rusty.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good
so
point.
Sitcom.
So we have now taken up so much of your time.
Yes.
Would you like the final word on the best movies pre-1980 before we slip on to our shout outs and our goodbyes?
No, that's great. I can't remember if there was something we were going to address. I thought your lists were great. The main reason I wanted to do it is just to like talk about not something that's been gone over and over and over, 80s, 90s. Zero.
Yeah.
Right. I have to say our lists were pretty diverse.
Yeah, I agree. I think you guys like. I love. I mean, there's a couple I have to watch now, and I think it's great.
Cool.
Can I before we let Mike go, or Michael, depending on which point of his career you're speaking to him at, can I ask like 3 rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Okay. 1. What do you think about the new feature on Netflix that allows you to skip the intro? Having created an intro. I want to know. I really want to know.
Here's what I'll say. I'll say that you have to earn the viewership of the title sequence.
And did you design the title sequence in Final Space?
No, I actually had very, very little to do with that one. Ironically, because I would say that like every other frame of the show, I was deeply involved in. But the title sequence kind of went away and came back. You know, like it was mail order. I shipped it. You know, those movies were like, we're going to ship the interior of the car to the vinyl shop, and then it comes back. That's how that title sequence was.
Well, I love that title sequence. But I know
do you have a favorite? Do you have like a favorite, not besides the ones you've made, but do you have a favorite title sequence?
Oh God, that's so hard. God, I don't know, because I always go back to I was like Dr. No, you know, like really simple, cool things. There's so many. I mean, like Deadpool.
There really is.
I'm just trying to even think of modern ones. What's one?
Right.
Oh, God. I know it sounds crazy, but one of my favorite title sequences from all time, and it's like maybe kind of like really, is Hell on Wheels. Do you remember that show? Oh man, that title sequence does everything you need it to do. That is like, oh man, I love that show, but also that title sequence just like sets the tone. It's short. It's the right, you know, like, because I love like Better Call Saul's title sequence. I'm a big title sequence guy to the point where it's really hard to like shake him out from the noise. Like you'll name them, I'll go, yeah, that one too. Yeah, that one too. For like 6 hours.
But like, I think up until this exact moment in time, there's never been an actual button that allows you just to forget it ever existed.
Well, and I think that to me, I think that's just business. They're just trying to make sure you don't stop watching. So I get it.
Right.
You know, they don't want you to wander off. It's the
but
same
you're
reason.
right. If they're good enough, you don't want to skip.
Well, and you know, listen, one of the coolest things, like Raphael and Noel and Steve on Bojack, like if I had film school or TV school, it was working with those guys. That's why I was so glad I directed a bunch of, like, that show would have been good whether I direct. Oh my God, this is going to sound like a weird humble brag. That show would have been good whether I directed episodes on it or not. That's a humble brag. That show didn't need me, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's an awesome show.
What you're saying is you made it amazing. Gotcha.
Yeah, of course. No, no. I just think like sometimes, like, I always look for projects that need me. You know, like, as in, I don't mean me specifically, but like what I have to offer. So. Bojack, when I did those episodes, I had a lot of fun. They were amazing, and I'm super proud of them. But like, they would have been good anyway because of the way Steve, Noel, Raphael, and the whole team, like Lisa and Mike, all those people, the way they work. So, but what I'll say is, what I got out of it that I'm lucky and selfishly was sitting in the room with Steve, Noel, and Raphael, because they were so good at, and Lisa, and they were so good at making something the best version of what it is. So with Bojack, Raphael, I think it was his idea to sort of change it up every time that the plot changed in the show. Awesome. And falling in love with those kinds of things are what makes shows great. And that's why, like, you know, whatever he asks me to do from now on, I will do, you know, because it was just like it made me work harder. It made me work better. There's a reason that title sequence is good, and it's not me. It's the team, you know?
Wow, well, that's awesome. That's really cool.
And wait, my only other quick question was, and this is from Becky, do you get to be in the recording sessions of the voices? Becky wanted to know.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny because I'm pretty adamant about that because in live action it would be absurd for the director not to be involved in the recording, but often it's just the showrunner or I guess the supervising director is there sometimes, but usually it's the writer and the showrunner. TV in the movies it's not like that, but I'm pretty adamant because like how is I feel like I'm letting down the showrunner, the writer, the whoever if I'm not kind of aware of what was grabbed in the session, and I also think that the actors need a point of reference that isn't kind of the person who's too close to it, I think, is the bad person to do the vocal direction sometimes. So I just really like being that defense mechanism for the showrunners and the creators. I don't mean they can't do it. I mean that I think it serves them better if you have a director making sure that the performance is what it needs to be and someone who's read all the scripts and knows what 1 and 10 the difference is. So I'm pretty adamant about that, even though it's not always the way it's done. I think I try to insist on it if I can get control of it.
And I think when we're so used to like the classic director cut, do it again, right? Like on a live action movie. And so Becky's other question was, do they often have to redo the scenes? Because when they're recording for some reason, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, they just record it once and they go home. But is there anybody ever like cut? You got to redo it again?
You mean like they say it once, or
Lily,
like,
they're acting. They still have to like do different takes.
No, Becky asks, and she's in the industry. Do they often need to re-record scenes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of ways you do it. So you sometimes you record it and then you put it all together in the animatic, and things aren't working or there are. So usually the first stage is you kind of get the page down. You do some ad-libbing. You get sort of a body of building blocks vocally. And if the script's right and the stars align, you maybe got away with it in one session. But more often than not, you edit it together and you go, oh God, this is working, but this line doesn't quite work, or this line doesn't quite work. Okay, so you write down all those lines, then you go re-record that on another
those specific lines.
Yeah, or whatever. Sometimes you redo the whole scene, sometimes you do like 2 lines. And then the third option is you get it all back from color and it's not quite right, and you redo it for tone or whatever. Although at that point, you're really in trouble if you're changing it too much because the lip sync's all done. So that becomes ADR, which is where you just sort of get the actor to read the timing. So they can change the tone. They just have to get the mouth movements as close as possible. So it's very malleable, which is, I think, is the safety, right? Like if it was get it once and you're stuck with it, that would be terrifying. But usually you can kind of work through the issues.
Well, it must be so fun to be in those sessions. I'm imagining. I don't know.
I love the edits and I love the recording. The hard part for me is, and this happens with being on set with actors, is you always are at the mercy of the temperament of the moment. So it's a constant balance of pissing off an actor, because here's a lot of the thing that happens with animation, especially, is you hire like Patrick Warburton and he comes in and you go, okay, well, this character's a goofy sponge. Can you make his goofy sponge? I'm not talking about SpongeBob because Tom Kenny's a genius. Hold on. Let's go into neutral territory. This is a chipmunk. Patrick Warburton, can you be a high-pitched chipmunk? And he goes, Patrick Warburton, why did you bring me in to play a chipmunk? And that happens all the time where you piss off the actor because you're going, why don't you try, remember that famous thing with William Shatner being like, I say it sabotage. Why are you telling me to say sabotage? Did you ever hear that?
No, but I like it.
Oh my God. It's like the best example of a director pissing off someone in the booth. It's like textbook. I would just Google it. It's the best. But essentially they're going like, hey, William Shatner, I love you. Can you be less William Shatner? And he's like,
right.
Oh, I goddamn can't. And I think that's a really interesting lesson. Like we had an actor who I won't say names because he's awesome. He probably would be fine with me telling the story. But anyway, he's a pretty famous actor. You'd laugh. You knew who it was. I'll tell you later. And he was famous for being hard to work with, temperamental and mean. And we all were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So he comes in and he meets, and he's really nice, super nice guy. And I said, okay, nice to meet you. Here's what we usually do. We do 3 takes and we pick the best one. He goes, why would I need to do 3 takes?
Oh, man.
And I'm like, well, okay.
Please tell me that's Clancy Brown.
No, Clancy Brown is this was not Dallas and Robo. So, but Clancy Brown
Lily,
is similar.
If he's not going to say the name, don't try to get him to say it.
I'd love Clancy Brown to say that to me, and I'd shit my pants.
No, Clancy Brown's the best. He actually is super supportive.
Oh God, he's in Buckaroo Banzai, the greatest movie of all time.
And he does voices in so many awesome things.
Yeah, but he's on Billions. He's amazing.
it was funny because he's like, so we went into the booth with him and the showrunner, we do a line and it was good. It was always good. And basically I would say good enough maybe is the way to explain it. It was and good enough isn't even fair. It was great. And then the showrunner would be like, what about this? What about this? And I was like, just trust me. Let's just let him do his thing one at a time. Because so we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We did about 10 takes like that. And he's like, all right, I feel like we got a good rhythm down. I'd like to go back and go and try this line again. And we did, and we got through the whole thing, and it was perfect. And I feel like, what's that? Sorry?
Well, I was going to say, so these are professionals. They know kind of how to get to their spot.
Yeah, and if you're casting someone and you need to change them, that's your fault. So that's why that's one of the things that you hear these stories about people being difficult in the booth. It's probably because you either made them feel self-conscious and they reacted with anger, or you aren't protecting them, because the director's job is to protect the actor.
Oh, that's really cool.
I'm fascinated.
Oh, okay. We should wrap up, even though I could really talk to you forever.
You're literally like, really stop asking this man questions.
Well, I had one little one at the end. I just
I don't have that much of a time crunch, so there's no rush.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra. Do they mean anything to you? Are they?
Yeah, those are great.
Okay.
Those ones, you know what? Those ones earned their 3/4 backflip land skid along the ground.
Oh yeah, for sure. To me, those snuck up on me. I've said it before in the podcast, but that's the first thing I've loved as much as Star Wars since I was a kid, and I only started watching those recently, in the last year and a half or so that I watched those. But wow,
I love anything that's better than it needs to be, and that's exactly what those shows are. They're like better than they need to be.
That's cool.
I like that.
That's awesome. Okay, so with that, shout outs. Do you have any shout outs, Mike? You got the floor?
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking, I probably should shout out to Dallas and Robo and John Cena and Kat Dennings for caring, and the rest of the ensemble crew is just so amazing and huge to even talk about. Matt and Andy, I think, did a great job, and I want to shout out to Suzanne Keilly, who I didn't mention. She was the sort of third hero writer on that, and I think her voice really, really honed Dallas and all the other characters, and she created a lot of really interesting stuff that stuck, that wasn't there at first, and she brought to the piece. And then Final Space, just saying hi to everybody on Final Space, I think I already shouted out the Bojack guys.
Cool. Awesome. Lil?
So my shout outs are just as good. I'm gonna shout out to Jane Lynch and Tim Blake Nelson, who are amazing in so many ways, and I love that they are also on your show. And that's about it. So, I'm good.
So I'm gonna shout out to, well, you shouted out to all the shows. So Bojack and Final Space and Dallas and Robo, those are terrific on Netflix, TBS, and YouTube Red. Respectively.
Yeah, you can watch Final Space now internationally on Netflix.
Oh wow,
really cool.
Awesome. Okay, so
that's like a game changer for me.
We have international. We have international.
It's now. I think it's there right now. It probably should be, right?
Yeah.
But also, equally famous cousin Vanessa. And
oh yes, equally famous as Kat Dennings for sure.
And to our mom and her chicken burgers, which are starting a texting revolution from her friends who are sending us angry texts over the chicken burger incident. That's the last episode.
I was very entertained by your full family episodes. I think those are hilarious.
Oh, thank you. Those are we always like to mix those up with the super ones where we have intelligent guests. We need to balance them.
No, but it's got a real genuine dynamic that I think is really relatable. It's funny.
Thanks a lot, man. And you, sir, people should follow you on Twitter. Where can they follow you?
Oh yeah,
follow your work?
Yeah. I feel like Twitter is one of those things that I do because my manager tells me to do it. Because I don't feel like I have particularly anything to share on Twitter, but Instagram is I'm a drawer, I'm an animator, so I love Instagram.
I will say that you should definitely be honest how you feel about Twitter. So I'm glad you felt like you could. And thank God you're not that into it, because that's why you responded to Shy.
I think of Twitter as I don't know. I don't think anything good has ever happened on Twitter, and I think a lot of good has happened.
Except that we met you, so thank you, Twitter.
As a kind of public instant messaging system, if it was sort of relegated to that, I'd be into it, because I do like that I met you guys, and I found a few people on there that I now glad I'm in contact with. But I feel like Instagram, I actually have something to share.
And
I have to say, I love following your Instagram, because most of the time when you put stuff and like you write the program that you used, which I think is very cool, like you say what you used to create the piece that you're using. And I know for Shy, who likes to animate, as a hobby and stuff, that's fun. But I often will read it and be like, oh my God, I wouldn't know how to turn that on. Like whatever that program is, like it makes me think of like, you made that and that.
Well, I mean, I use a lot of programs where it's like someone made it and I'm taking all the credit for it. So if you don't kind of like, because I also like, I make most of my stuff, I draw everything I post, but a lot of the times I'll kind of buy 3D models and play around and animate with them. So I really try to like shout out to the people who actually made the stuff if it wasn't. So it's essentially it's by me unless otherwise stated. And I really think that giving credit to people who program your operating system that makes it possible to have After Effects, which is another program, like all those people deserve
cool.
As much credit as I do.
That's
yeah,
really
your
cool.
doodles are also amazing. I mostly just doodle like squares on top of each other, and your doodles are very cool.
Oh man, the iPad Pro is like the best thing that ever happened. That pen on the iPad Pro, oh my God, I'm so in love with it.
It goes everywhere with me as well. And I mean, again, I feel silly saying that, but yeah.
Oh, but doodling, that's it, man. Have you ever seen? Okay, another I think it's 80s actually. Is Wings of Desire? I'm going to digress one more time, and I'll let you. I'm sorry, but to derail. But Peter Falk in Wings of Desire, you know that movie?
No.
Okay. If you're
I'm writing all these down.
Okay, so here's the thing. I feel safe to say, forget the rest of my list, and the next chance you get, watch Wings of Desire with Peter Falk.
Okay, done.
And you'll see exactly why.
Okay, cool. It will be done. It will be done. Lily, where can people follow you?
Chichi K Gomez. So Mike, you would have to go back to my previous episodes to find out why that is my Twitter handle. But long story short, I'm the only one that doesn't have a middle name, and because of our Latin background, since our mom's Cuban, I just basically as a child gave that one to myself. Never been able to live that down, so I've embraced it. And my husband's last name is Gomez, which I think is hilarious. So
wait, spell it. How do you make sure?
Chichi is CHICHI.
Oh, Chichi Gomez. Okay.
Chichi. And then K is from my own last name, and then Gomez is not my name, but it's my husband's, and I just think it's hilarious that that's his last name. So it goes so well with Chichi. So it's Chichi K Gomez on the Twitter application.
Twitter.
And
on Twitter.
And you can follow me at Pancake for Table on Twitter and Instagram. And you can follow all of the shenanigans at pancakefortable.com, and you can write or review us, share us with your friends. And with that, the music's going to kick in, and we're going to end the show. So you have to dance in your chair, Mike. I know we can't see you in the video screen anymore.
Take my word for it.
Yeah, exactly. Take your word for it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
And Mike, you're invited back
Thank you so
anytime.
much.
Thanks, man.
No, why? Why can't I the only one who can see the three of us?
You can see the three of us?
I can see the three of you. The reason that you don't get why he was sounding weird is because he was using the earbuds, those like cool Apple earbuds. He's famous, Shy. They use that kind of stuff.
Oh, no. Now I see where his house must be. Okay, that makes sense now.
What did you think you were looking at?
I thought it was like here. I thought it was your living room.
Because it's a split screen, so you just thought there's like a red couch.
Yeah.
But he was in the frame a second ago.
I didn't
notice. Like, did you think that was Jose, just like sitting next to me? He turned into like a good-looking Canadian dude.
That's right.
Oh my God, isn't it weird that he sounds so Canadian? It's like comforting.